I don't know why I had you stand. Are you supposed to salute me or something? You can sit down. Oh, give you a relax. Okay, to give you a change. Okay, sit down. Did any of you bring your last chart? This is our last chart for us to conclude filling out so that we're able to find out what is our sweet spots. If you don't have your chart, they have made a few more that's over here. If you do, one good thing, if you do have it at home, the listing, it's going to be very simple for you to draw one. Just make a box, and you can fill in the category if you've left it at home or whatever. We're talking about finding details about ourselves that helps reveal what is our sweet spot, or what is the things that we do really, really good, so that we can do those type of things back to the Lord as a ministry. And when we do those type of things, we do not find ourselves being burnt out. We don't find ourselves being exhausted. We don't find ourselves stressing out about doing whatever it is that God's created us to do, these type of things. When you usually get stressed is when you're asked to do something that God really does not give you that type of ability or character to do. And we're kind of squeezing a square peg into a round hole. Then you feel a little bit of that pressure. I'm not saying that you can't develop some more abilities. Yes, you can. But first and foremost, you've got to know what you do best. Everybody has to know what is the things you do best. Because you must, say I must, do the things I do best. In other words, if you have an aptitude for music, you should be involved in the music somehow. You may not be on stage, but because you love music, you could be a person that listens to new CDs that come out and great songs, and you could pass those songs and pass the CD to Sister Megan or myself and say, this is a great song. I liked it. Why don't you listen to it? Maybe it's something you'd like to use. But if you don't have a love for music, you're probably not going to be the type of person who listens to a lot of CDs. Understand what I'm saying? If you have a good aptitude with details, then you should be involved in something in the church that has to do with keeping details. Can I say this without you getting offended? I got 3 yeses. Thank you. Now, this is not meant as a personal arrow to anybody. You should be involved in something in the church. I won't even look at you, all right? That's why God gave you gifts. That does not mean just because your best friend is doing something in the church that excludes you. Well, I'm running around with this person, they're my best friend, they're doing something for the Lord, and I just go with them as they do what they're doing for the Lord. No. Really, that's not the way it goes. I don't ride on what my husband does. Because my husband is the pastor, the church does not give me a out-of-jail ticket. You know, in Monopoly, get out of jail free. I get out of jail free just because my husband is doing ministry. No, really, God gave each of us a gifting, didn't he? And that's why we're trying to help you find your gifting. Why? Because we should be doing something. If you love to put away things and you're compulsive and you like to keep things clean, you have an opportunity in the church. You could actually use your ability to come and keep the storeroom clean. There's a lot of dust on these flowers. See, if you're compulsive, you could do that. He's not compulsive. He's just trying to give somebody, you know what I'm saying? We can all do a little bitty something. I'm not asking you to do something real big because that's God's job, not mine. But we can all do something. And something isn't just going along with somebody else who's doing what they're doing. No, I mean actually do something, okay? So with this in mind, we're going to talk about our sweet life experiences. How does our sweet life experiences reveal our sweet spot? Well, it's very interesting, but details of how you did things when you were a child, as you did things as a youth, or as you did things as an adult, often are reflected in your earlier years. And I'm going to give you some examples. We're going to start with childhood, and this is how I want you to reflect self-awareness with yourself. We're going to talk about childhood. I'm going to give you 2 examples and ways that we can find out about these characters through their childhood. One of them is me, because I can use myself as an example. I know myself. And one of them would be Moses. As a child, Moses, the Bible tells us that he was excellent in the ways of the court and procedures. In other words, when he was growing up in Egypt, he excelled at knowing the ways that things were supposed to be done in the legal system for Egypt, the ways that they should be operating, and all of the procedures and how things were to be run. He was very good at that. He mastered the laws of the land when he was in Egypt, and he was very educated and he studied at the feet of the finest astronomers and the mathematicians. So he had a natural aptitude, God-given, because everybody doesn't have that aptitude. We're not all maybe the best in math or the best in astronomy, or we're maybe not the best with the laws of the land, but this was a natural ability that Moses had as a child. This is very key for parents. You can look at your children, and should try to do this, to sometimes help them find what are their natural God-given abilities, so that you're not trying to force them to become something that society says they should be. Hey, we live in a very pressurized cooker. Here in Singapore, everybody should be a doctor and a lawyer. But if we only have doctors and lawyers, what else is going to happen? The society will fall apart, right? We can't just all be doctors and lawyers. And so as a result of that pressure of you must obtain the highest and be the best and have the biggest face of all faces, you know, I want your face to stand out. So you must be the top. You must be number one. Well, sometimes that's not possible for our children. I mean, I would love for your child to have that. I would love for every child to excel and to be the number one. But there's only one number one. So how? Somebody's got to be 2. And then there's only one, and there's only 1, 2. Somebody's got to be 3. So what do we do for our child so that our child becomes a success? We don't say, to be a success, you must be number 1. Who got the highest score in the class? Not you. Why didn't you get the highest score? I paid so much. You got tuition. You got this. You got that. You're so lazy. You're always computer game. If it wasn't a computer game, you would be number 1. But no, you don't. Nah. That's kind of our society that does that to us. Because even on the workplace, we're shoving men to be number 1. We got to be number 1. We got to get out of the car park before everybody else. We got to get to McDonald's and buy the hamburger before everybody else. We got to get to the top of this rat race. You know, all the rats are fighting, and we got to be the number 1 rat. Well, that's maybe putting a little more pressure on our children than we should. Because probably when we were growing up, we didn't have that pressure, because it wasn't that way. When I was growing up, there wasn't, at least in my environment, there wasn't that pressure. In fact, when I was growing up, my parents never even asked me what I wanted to do with my life. They never even asked me about what kind of grades I got. They didn't even come to my graduations. They didn't even come to my things I did. Because when they were growing up, they didn't even finish school. So how was school so important? They didn't even get an education at all. So when I did well in school, they didn't even realize. They didn't even know to even tell me, go talk to a counselor to plan. Are you going to go to university? No, there was none of that. So in my generation, the pressure wasn't as great in these areas. But now we live in a time where it isn't any choice. You do have to do well because you have to live in this society that we live in. So parents, what do? We must help the children to also be able to be a success. What if your child isn't number one? Then you must